First of all, thank you, Economic Times HR, for inviting me for this session. Uh, I'm very pleased that we have very good experienced set of panelists today for the session. And let me introduce them very briefly. We have Shrikant Karra, CHRO Emphasis. Then we have Abhishek Kumar Singh, Senior Director HR with Impetus Technologies. Shrikant, welcome. And then we have also Anil Kumar Singh, Vice President, Head of Talent Acquisition India for Capgemini. And Rohan Sylvester, Recruitment Evangelist in Indeed. I like that title. I was telling him several times. The evangelist word is a very attractive word. So welcome for the session today. The format will be that each of us, five of us, will share our main thoughts for about 4 minutes. And then we will be going into interaction session within the panel. And the audience is, I would suggest the audience should really raise questions whenever they want. Let's not wait for the end of the session. We want to make this a conversation so that we all learn from each other. The topic is very contemporary and a lot of new things are happening. Some of the old thoughts are being discarded. So there will be a lot of questions in our minds. So don't hesitate to ask questions. And I'll try to see if we can embed audience questions also during the discussion with the panel members. So let me first share my thoughts for a couple of minutes. If you notice that it is in the HR domain that a buzzword takes a catch. That buzzword continues sometimes for years together. A decade plus ago, it was HR business partner. Nobody knew what that meant because I had never asked anybody to define what finance people have never been asked to say you must be a business partner. But HR people were dragged into saying you must be a business partner, and all of us raised our hand to say, I'm a business partner. I'm not deriding. But that fact continued for years together, if not for a whole decade or plus. Then came this whole idea of employee experience. I'm just pointing out some of the things that we get caught on because it is right thing to do. And if you're not with the thing, we are outdated. People think we are from Jurassic Park. So we all catch on those phrases and talk about it that my company is the best in employee experience. I'm committed to employee experience. I'm not deriding it, but I'm just pointing out. And now recently, if you heard and read the great attrition. Now we have gone gray and some of us have been lost hair looking after attrition in the organization we have worked, but now suddenly attrition has become the buzzword. Now, all this actually means that there is something shifting in the perception of the candidates and the perception of the talent pool, both inside and outside. And opportunity platform is changing. And in reality, there is a large amount of attrition happening, especially in ITES, technological sector. And that does not mean that attrition is a new subject altogether. As a result of that, we candidate new experience is not new, but as a result of the new expectations happening around, the focus on this has become more vivid. And as a result of this new focus, if we do not pay attention as an organization, we suffer because of either we don't attract the right people or we don't retain the right people. And even if the reason is different, it is attributed to missing out something in the not doing something which is expected in industry parlance. Now, the question is that does the employee really choose a company because of joining experience? Or is it like it is a part of the perception in the mind of the employees, not only joining us, but who are looking at us as a future employer? It is not packaging alone. I mean, if you have a Mont Blanc pen given in a newspaper wrapping, of course, it feels that you lost the value, but the intrinsic value of the organization and what it offers the career does not go down. But the packaging and the way it is presented, the way it is created does matter. It does matter. So if you go to Glassdoor, and yesterday one of my panel members was reminding that there is actually a whole series of comments on how lousy they felt when they were interviewed and how disappointed they were. And that means the fence sitters, those who are looking at the companies, actually tend to shy away. And as a result of that, you might actually miss out some good people looking at you favorably to consider as an employer. The choices are multiple. Let's not forget the one thing that has changed is that we are not in the buyer's market. The choices are multiple. And if the choices are multiple, we've got to make an edge right from the beginning to ensure that we attract the right attention, we create the right impression, and that we do something that benefits the organization in terms of attracting the right talent. And that is not to be taken for granted. Fad or no fad. You can give it any name, you can deride the whole process. It is all a part of the passing phase. Nothing will happen, but it will happen. And the last point I want to make before I close is that let's not only focus on tech sector. There is a whole bunch of MSMEs, SMEs, manufacturing sector, where many of the things that we talk in the tech sector does not apply. There are not multiple jobs available in the manufacturing sector. If you look at automobile industry, there is difference there. But let's talk of principle of how do we approach the whole idea of attracting good talent to us and making sure that we take the baby step in a positive way. So with that, I will close my sharing comments, and may I now invite Shrikant to share his views. Shrikant, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Basrai. That was a very wise introduction from an experienced person like you. Having said that, let's not forget, let me remind the audience, and of course, Mr. Basrai, who said, this is a buzzword. In a way it is, but candidate experience was always there. Only thing is the shape and form that candidate experience or employee experience has changed dramatically over the last 30, 40 years. Even I'm a veteran in the industry, not as much as Mr. Basrai, but close to that. And so let's examine what this is all about, candidate experience is all about. So as I said, it's always been induction program, as we used to call it one point in time, or prospecting an employee is what we used to call that in today's world. There's a lot of technology interplay, no doubt about it. So I would like to make it a principle-oriented discussion as to what are the elements that go into it, which is applicable to MSMEs, manufacturing, software industry, you name it. And probably touch upon some nuances of technology industry, the way it's playing out today. So let me start by saying, what is this all about? So candidate experience, let's define what it is. It's nothing but a series of interactions between the prospective employer and the prospective candidate, right? Now, what are these interactions? There are various pillars. I'll try to touch upon some of them. Number one is obviously start with prospecting. Prospecting could be in various interfaces. It could be your social media interface. It could be a website. It could be through a vendor. It could be a direct channel. You could have approached an employee yourself, which is called referral channel. So multiple channels are at play here. And each candidate, or rather the candidate, is being prospected differently from each of those channels. So let's be conscious of that's number one, prospecting. Number two is the technology interface, which I talked about earlier. There are various systems out there, AI-driven, ML-driven, but let's not get into that. But fundamentally, the one interface in one place or the other throughout the process, there's a technology interface. It could be a recruitment system. It could be a social media-based interaction. It could be, in a remote world today, there's a lot more of chatbots being played out in terms of what kind of interviews happen and so on and so forth. So prospecting, number one. Number two is technology interface. Number three is the interview process. Obviously, probably in my list of things, the most important. How well is the interview conducted? How well-informed the interviewer is, both in terms of his knowledge about the subject and also about the company, and how he's going to convince the employee. That's the third one. The fourth one is the offer process, right? Very emotional process. What kind of compensation expected and how are you going to offer it and how is it going to make it look attractive to the prospective candidate is the fourth one. The selection process by itself, making a candidate a selection and offer, the selection itself is a very different process. Again, a technology interface here, how the offer letter goes, how well is the offer letter designed to explain both in terms of, the job description and apart from that, the compensation elements. How well does the candidate, or the offer letter made in terms of making these things clearer? You'll notice many companies have very innovative ways of taking out these offer letters. So that's another important element. And the last one, and equally critical as much as the selection process, is the onboarding experience, right? And again, technology plays a big role here. But when a person walks, it's like an old joke in HR. right? An HR guy goes and sells him heaven, but when he walks in the end, it turns out to be very different from what has been sold. So the sold product is different. It turns out to be hell. So is it consistent with the experience that he had all along? So prospecting, technology, interview process, offer process, selection process, and onboarding process. I could have missed out something you can add on, but these are the most important elements. And each element, remember, has a different touch. Not all of them are same. There is, as I said, an interview process, the knowledge element to it. There's a people part to it. Different people interface with the candidate at different times in all these processes. There's a technology interface. And most importantly, there's an emotional element in the whole thing. Emotional in terms of expectation mismatch, compensation mismatch, and so on and so forth. So that, I think, is what the definition is all about. And the last piece I'll leave you with is my favorite topic. And as technology is advancing, as data, more and more data is coming out through various processes, how do you personalize? Just like a customer experience being personalized by every industry, a candidate experience also need to be personalized to what the candidate wants. And that's a final thing. I'll touch upon that about a little later.
Good comprehensive angle. And actually a new angle you brought in is the offer letter. Very seldom people talk about the nitty-gritty of what goes into offer letter, how clear it is. So thank you very much. That's a new angle. The rest is important, but it is a good idea of an experienced panel to bring in angles which sometimes are not discussed or missed out. So Abhishek, may I request you now to share your thoughts?
What I'm going to touch upon and talk about is since March 2020, like the whole candidate experience or the way we were creating experience before pandemic and through these last 1.5 years, that entire paradigm has changed, right? From having the convenience of sitting across the table and talking to candidates one-to-one, we have completely gone virtual, right? And when you are virtual, creating same kind of engagement and experience is comparatively difficult. And we have gone through our journey of transitioning from a in-person interview to a completely virtual mode of connecting and interviewing. And we've seen that technology has played a very, very important role. Like we wouldn't have thought of getting on a Teams call or a Zoom call that often like we do these days. We wouldn't have been very comfortable offering a candidate just by having a Zoom interaction and not meeting that person face to face. But today we are very, very confident in offering people, going ahead and offering them. Similarly, candidates today are making decisions without even visiting the premises of the companies, right? So there is a whole new angle to how this experience is being created, how the employee and prospective employer interaction is happening. So I just wanted to bring forth that. Now, in this world, how do we create experience and engagement with candidate is something that we have worked on and discovered some of the pathways, and I would want to go and share my thoughts there. We know that when we talk about the differentiators or great things about our company, people do read it, appreciate about it, but they believe it when one of their colleagues say that, yeah, hey, I know Impetus and it's a great organization. I interacted with them. They were very professional, or I've worked with Impetus and their culture is great. They respect people. They offer great benefits. So that is when people get to believe what you really talk that you offer, right? So your differentiators are established with your target audience when you have people or ambassadors or advocates who talk about you. Now, I see this entire topic and the theme that we are talking about today very, very relevant, because it is talking about how we can create great experiences with the candidates, which can help us becoming an employer of choice. So we basically thought about it and we created some ways, like we created an employee referral program, which is not limited to our employees. We've extended to any candidate who register with us, irrespective of whether the candidate is selected or joins us or doesn't join us. That candidate can refer any of his colleagues into our interview process, and upon selected, we acknowledge that person, thank, and also monetarily reward that person. So one stakeholder is you getting the entire candidate to be your advocate, your ambassador. You are getting your employees to be your advocates and ambassadors. We even extended that to our ex-employees or colleagues who left us and are working elsewhere. We extended the employee referral benefits to them. And a lot of them joined back when we connected with them, and a lot of them gave us great referrals, which converted into joinings. And we've seen that people who are coming through these channels have very, very higher likability of joining us. You all might have noticed, being in the IT industry, because of the surge in the hiring, the joining ratio has dropped down from what it used to be around 70 to 80% to 35 to 40% now. Now, some of these ways are coming up very, very handy in engaging with candidates and then getting referrals and making people join. Now, some of the other aspect which is working well for us is small things like when you talk to a candidate, we've heard from candidates about things that differentiates us is all our interviewers are always on video when we expect the other person to be on video. And that basically shows that we are at the same level. It's a level playing field, and we're talking. We introduce ourselves before we ask the candidate to introduce themselves. So that also shows that yes, we are being respected, and it's an equal playing field. We walk them through the company and the opportunity and what they're going to work on if they become part of us. That also gives a great view about what they are getting into. And at the end, irrespective of the result, we end up the conversation in a way which is pleasing to the person. The person walks away with some learning, irrespective of the result. We make sure that the candidate walks away of that happily. And that helps us get a lot of good references from these people, even if they don't join us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some of the aspects that I wanted to touch upon and talk about, Mr. Bashir.
Abhishek, you brought in a new angle that the candidates can refer candidates and ex-employees can refer candidates, and you still give them a thank you, appreciation, if it's a payment, etc. That's a new angle. And I'm glad that you are sharing that type of things, because employee referral is a very common practice. And paying employee as a reward for introducing somebody good has been a well established. But asking candidates to refer candidates and paying them a thank you bonus or something, Jamia, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll continue to do this. And now can I request Anil from Capgemini to share his views? Anil?
Yeah, so thank you. So my view, just a quick background about me. I've been with Capgemini for 19 years now, and it's been a journey from 340 employees when I joined Capgemini to 160,000 employees as we speak. And I've been all throughout in recruitment and recruiting. And, just adding on to some of the points that has been mentioned, if you look at Capgemini this year and the kind of hiring that we have done, we have hired 60,000 plus people this year. And to do this kind of hiring, of course, we had to look at, given the talent war, we had to look at, what are the technology intervention that we have and how is it helping us, manage this scale of hiring. So if I briefly talk about campus, what we did, or the fresher hiring, we came up with a tool wherein right from, the pre-placement connect to registration to talking to the TPOs, trying up with our assessment partners to do the assessments, doing the entire interview, everything, we got into one platform. And we were able to, without going to the campuses, we were able to do massive hiring. Now, if I talk about the lateral hiring piece, and Shrikant covered some of those beautifully. Right from the very first step of engaging with the candidate at the sourcing level, we got in a chatbot, wherein I could reach out to 5,000 candidates. Just imagine a sourcer or a sourcing person making 5,000 calls to check whether you are interested in an opportunity with Capgemini. And here you have a chatbot, which is, reaching out to so many people, talking about Capgemini, and also not just checking whether they are interested. It's also going into a deeper and asking, what kind of skills have they worked on? If they worked on Java, whether they worked on a microservices or a Spring Boot or a Selenium. So getting into more details to understand what the person basically is working in that particular technology. Right from there to doing the assessments, we got in assessment partners. We had assessment partners, but we added more where we could replace the level 1 interview by our technology assessment partners. We got in a tool, along with Teams. We needed an additional tool to do this massive scale of interviews. So we tied up with a partner wherein, it's like a virtual, most of the IT organizations, every weekend, there is a drive that happens, right? So this was like a virtual weekend drive where you have panels sitting in the rooms, you have candidates waiting, you just, pull the candidate into the room, the interviews are happening, there is a feedback given then and there. There is a photo of the candidate, because that's also very important, as part of the hiring process. So we changed that entire interview process, by getting in technology. And then eventually, after we have made an offer, we were one of the leaders or the first one to sign up a tool which engages with the candidate post offer. So, the moment the offer is out, we have a tool, we have brand ambassadors, or could be any technology, could be digital, could be cloud, could be Java. We have brand ambassadors within Capgemini who are engaging with the candidate. The candidates are, asking queries. We are responding to those questions, and everything is there on a particular tool. Is the candidate, after we have made an offer, is the candidate, he has taken the offer and then there is silence for 1 week, or he's engaging? Is he asking the question? If he's not, then, we are also nudging the candidate that, it's been 1 week that we have given you an offer. Do you have any questions? And one of the, other thing that I want to talk about, we came up, like Abhishek mentioned, the offer to joining ratio. Yes, it dropped significantly for everybody in the IT industry. But, we came up with ideas. So we worked with our marketing and communication team, and sent communication out to all our offer candidates, talking about our values, about our clients, what would they get, how would their career look like when they would join Capgemini. We came up with a new event. We called that event 0 Day, assuming that when you join, that is your first day of joining. We came up with an event called 0 Day, even before joining, where we had our leaders coming and talking. But it was not just about just leaders talking about about Capgemini. We also had some fun, wherein we have a rubber band which plays. We have our employees who play instruments, who sing songs. So also giving that fun, which is a value at Capgemini, giving that aspect of Capgemini, playing games with the candidate, answering their questions and answers. So we had to bring in technology intervention, and some of the changes had to be done given the talent war. And that's why today, I'm proud to say that we've been able to deliver the kind of numbers that we have delivered this year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Anil, if I get your numbers,
Yeah.
from 19 years ago, 350 to 160,000 people. When you
That's
count the
been my-
ratio of 1:10 candidates, one of them is higher, then you must be more popular than Rajnikant also. On a
So that's
serious
been my
note,
journey. Yeah.
this idea of exchanging openly with offered candidates between the time they are offered acceptance to joining, and Abhishek very rightly mentioned out the one of the pains that we in HR have suffered is that you just don't know how many people will turn up on the joining date. So all the efforts you put in recruitment is left to chance, literally. But your effort to bridge that and make sure that you're connected. I also like your idea about employees interacting with candidates. It's a very authentic approach, and we talk about this. So
Sure.
thank you very much for sharing that, Anil.
Thank you.
Coming to Rohan, would you like to share your thoughts?
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Mr. Masrai. So I'm actually quite excited to be talking today about this particular topic. I have been on the receiving end of great candidate experiences as well as bad candidate experiences. And they leave an impression in your mind, right? As an organization, as a person who's been through it. And today more than ever, I think the fact that we're completely virtual, it means completely different ways of engaging with candidates. And job seekers are increasingly being selective about where they work, whom they work for, and how they work. And the candidate experience is a critical part of this. I mean, when you see, when all things equal, if they have multiple offers, I'm not saying a great candidate experience will definitely think, but it will push them to that moment where they can say, yes, maybe this is the company for me. And it goes beyond that, right? As a lot of them, as Dr. Sanil and Abhishek was saying, there are moments where we are interacting with them at every turn. It's not just an experience. We are at every moment trying to also explain what they would do when they join. And that I think keeps them also moving forward. And particularly now, there was a recent study where we found out that more job seekers are on the lookout for meaningful work. Like more than 40% believe the perception of the work we consider important will be changed forever as a result of this pandemic, right? What is important work? What is not important work? So it's in our best interest, not just to convey what the role is, but what we're trying to achieve. And expectations are changing. With the demand for talent increasing, organizations need to think beyond what they've been doing to become an employer choice, because there is the factor of brand. Now, I come from a content marketing background. And if you speak to any marketer, they'll tell you experience is as crucial to brand than just even the brand itself. You can see it. The great brands give great experiences. And that is completely applicable to organizations which are hiring as well. We should start thinking of candidates as customers in some sense, because that's the kind of experience that will actually win. And the fact of the matter is, I think Mr. Basra, you touched on is, people talk. You have a bad experience, you're going to go home, you're going to talk to your friends, your family. In fact, we have numbers for this. 64% of candidates we interacted and surveyed said they will talk about negative experiences. But there's a silver lining to this as well. At the same time, 71% of them said they will also talk about positive experiences. So it's not just all bad, right? A good experience kind of really grow into something bigger. I have a good experience, I tell my friends, and it's simple as that. Like, people will say, hey, I've heard of this company, my friend had a great experience with them, you should consider applying for them if you come across it. And all of these things, whether we are in person or virtual, it remains important to keep building that kind of an experience over time. And I want to point out one thing though. It's not just enough to build a good one and leave it. You need to constantly evaluate and iterate. And I think the last year was the best example for this. What we were doing as best practices in 2019 suddenly stopped mattering in 2020 and is getting less relevant in 2021. And we have to change to kind of modify our experiences to take into consideration all these roadblocks. So it's not like a one-time thing, unfortunately. I mean, it would be brilliant and lovely if you could build one and let it run, but unfortunately it's one we're going to keep an eye on, and we have to keep an eye on as we go.
Thank you, Rohan. I like the research angle you brought in the discussion. Most of us go by our perception, what we hear with friends and colleagues and read. You are bringing in data, and your data of 60% of people do talk of negative experience, and also equal number talking about positive experience. Numbers may be anything, 60 or 59 doesn't make a difference, but you are establishing something clear that a large number of people are your not ambassadors, but are your evaluators. They some way or the other remember. This experience is important. Sometimes even a small thing makes you remember about the organization or about the experience that you have had, good or bad. Many years back, I used to go to Bangalore. I was heading HR for Motorola, and Oberoi was behind the office. So that was my home, literally. for many, many days in a month. And one thing I still remember after so many years is that they send you a welcome drink when you reach your room. And it's always this insipid, some red liquid called fruit juice and all. But I would ask for Horlicks. And every time I went, they never goofed up of sending Horlicks. Now, it may be very simple. The computer must have said that this guest prefers this. But it does make a difference, I remember. And today, like Anil mentioned, there are a lot of tools available to make sure that our connect with the candidate is real time. It's not some superficial whitewash that people see through artificial, synthetic, made up experiences compared to genuine connect with the candidates. So thank you very much for sharing. I think it's very nice to see completely different angles being brought by the whole panel together here. What I would like to ask is that what do job seekers seek? Besides this experience they feel, what are they looking for? Anil, would you like to share? And I would request brief answers so that we can cover more topic. And Ritika, if you are watching the questions from the audience, please make sure that we involve the audience questions as we go along. Anil, would you like to comment, sir?
So I think the job seeker, of course, from his standpoint or her standpoint, is definitely looking at how the career, if he joins or she joins Capgemini, how the career is going to shape, who are the role model. But I think during the hiring process, what the person is also looking at is the honesty and the transparency. And, and they expect speed and agility in the hiring process. They expect them to be kept informed on how things are moving. Sometimes, to be honest, given the scale at which you operate, there are times when, we may not end up, communicating to them on what stage they are, because there are certain business situations. But I think that's what they need. They need, to be told that this is where the stage of the hiring process is. This is where you are. These are the timelines. And they need that honesty and transparency because they have invested their time.
What you're alluding to is like latest update. Where am I moving? Is my candidate in the pipeline, not pipeline? And Abhishek, any new angle to that? Briefly.
Yeah, so in our experience, the kind of talent we interact with, what they are really keen about is what is the content of my job? So will I be doing something which is creative, innovative? Will I be solving problems that are unsolved? So that is the kind of target audience we talk to, and that is their
more of the briefing you do for the position. There's nothing to do with individual, Abhishek. Or is it to do with individual?
It is to do with individual. So it's important that you understand the aspiration of individual and you present the opportunity with their lens. Not you don't need to be unreal about things, but you need to talk the same language as the candidate expects.
And if you find that the aspiration of the candidate is really not what this job will offer, would you have the courage to tell him?
Yes, we tell them that, look, what you're looking for is not something that we do. And because it's not only about hiring, it's about retaining people. For how long can you retain somebody who is not interested in what you do?
Right. So what you're saying is, let's be authentic. Even if it's bad news.
Yeah.
Srikanth, coming to you. All these promises that we make, and you mentioned in light humor in the end of your, how are they kept and how do you track that the promises were kept?
I think simple answer. Simple answer is with the amount of, again, as I keep using, and technology is not the only answer, but technology is a great enabler for this. At various periods, doing a very simple survey. I'm not talking about a big survey, a big research-based approach to it. Fundamentally simple, 4 to 5 questions at every stage of the career. Pre-joining, post-joining, 1 year after joining. If you get to 1 to 1.5 years, you're able to really keep the promise. 3 to 4 years is surely assured from an employee in general. So I think keeping a check on it through your database, researchers or other surveys, and getting the data and taking the data seriously, analyzing data and getting the insights from it would be the only answer I could think of. Okay. Absolutely.
Coming to you, Abhishek, there are times that promises need not be quantitative or in a way measurable, you will have empowered environment. And that's a very motherhood statement. How do you measure that?
The way our tagline goes, it's like get the future you want. So what we're basically telling to the candidate is, yes, we have all the, all the tools available with you, but eventually you have to equally participate. And we're not going to tell the candidate, or sell something which is not going to be there. So, we'll tell them exactly what is available at Capgemini, what are some of the learning interventions, the learning platforms, and how we upskill them, how we reskill them, how the entire IJP or the internal job posting process works, if there are any on-site opportunities. So everything is communicated to them, but it's not that, but the candidate who then becomes an employee has to participate in that journey. He cannot be saying that, oh, no, the recruiter gave
Where
me
is the measurement part here that you are keeping the promise?
Yeah. It's in terms of, so we don't make such promises where it's like you will get this. We tell them that this is all available, this is all that's there to
But
build
employees themselves make
but
it
you
happen.
have to participate, you have to build, you have to build your career and get the career you want. It cannot be that just because we've hired you,
The burden is on-
the burden is on the employer. No, it's
So,
equally on the
Rohan,
employee.
what Anil is mentioning is design thinking, literally.
Yeah.
You ask
Yeah.
the candidate
Yeah.
to say, you shape it. And I like the tagline behind him. You get the future you, what is
Get the future
tagline?
you want. Get the
You
future
want.
you want.
And
Yeah.
if you want something, work for it. What's your view, Rohan?
So interestingly, the thing about promises, and this is something I have conversations with senior leaders, is 100% make sure the promises you are going to say, and I say promises is the wrong word here. The message that you're putting out there is one that is reflective of what the internal realities are. Before you even talk to the candidates and say, this is why we are great, a good dipstick is to look at your own employees and literally ask them, are we actually great in this? And I think that gives us a lot of insights into what we're going to tell them. It's not even about building new things. See, no company is perfect, but some companies do some things really well. And let's be proud of that and find out what we do well and then let people know. And I find that it's an empowering moment for the candidates, because they can look at what a company says and say, okay, this is not for me. And I can move on. It becomes a self-selection process that they find companies that kind of align with their views. And when it comes to measurement, I'm a true believer in, I think anything can be measured if you can just find the right question. So like, for example, you were asking about empowering. In fact, I recently did pulse surveys. We do a lot of pulse surveys in our very own organization, where one of the actual questions was, do you feel that you are unable to say things in a meeting? Like literally. And of course, it's anonymized down to a team. We can break it down by department. And we're able to tell, right, these departments, people don't feel empowered. These departments, people do feel empowered. And everybody's open about it. And we're being frank and transparent. I think if we can just find the right question, anything can be measured. And there are many ways to do this. Usually pulse surveys, as Mr. Kara was saying, these quick, easy surveys where it doesn't take too much time gives us a very easy insight.
Excellent. I like that point that anything can be measured. The first line of Six Sigma is that what cannot be measured doesn't exist. So I like that. I like your sharp focus on measure everything that we are doing. Shrikant, coming to you, taking an extension from Rohan's question, and I don't want you to comment only on your organization. Do we in HR have the courage or necessity to share employee survey results with the candidate? Is it the right thing to do?
Well, I mean, in my experience, okay, I don't want to talk about my organization, but all the organizations that I know of, worked with GE earlier, which was probably one of the as good as Motorola in terms of doing surveys and participating and telling the employees, this is what you guys said, and doing what you call focus groups on how you're going to improve, and then getting back to the employee saying, hey, we could improve these three, but the other two is still work in progress. So this is a norm in today's industry. If you don't share it to the employees are not going to participate in it in the future. They're going to laugh it off saying, hey, we don't even know what you're talking about. We do a survey, we don't know what the results are. What's the point of doing it again?
No, my question was, let me rephrase it. Would you share the internal pulse survey result with a candidate who is likely to be your employee?
Very innovative thought. We haven't done it, but a great thought. I'll take this
What is the
idea.
danger or what is the advantage or danger in doing this?
Well, I would say, there's a very interesting thought, to be honest, very innovative way of looking at things. I never thought of it, to be honest. But having said that, no harm in saying, let's remember one thing. Whatever the internal survey says, the Glassdoors, the Indeeds, and the so-called social media in one way or the other are representative of what these surveys say. See, in a way, it's already going out, either by an ex-employee or the existing employee, may not be in that very precise fashion that a survey shows, but in a pattern-wise, at a very generic level, the social media talks about what the organization is good at, what it's not good at.
So, Abhishek, I saw you nodding your head very agreeably on this. So let me come to you, sir. This Glassdoor and all are what Srikanth is sharing, that they anyway know what your employees or others think about you. A new angle. Do you think that some of the feedback on the Glassdoor are planted by your competitors?
So what I feel is that there has to be a motivation for somebody to go and write on Glassdoor. People don't spend time otherwise, right? And most of the times I feel the negative motivation pushes people to go and write a lot more than the positive motivation. If you are happy, I think it's okay. It's taken for granted that company gave me a great experience. But if for some reasons you didn't like something about the company, you'll make sure you go and write and then try to basically play it against the company, right? Competitors, I don't think so, would get into having somebody go and write on other companies. I still feel that like all the companies are ethical enough not to do that. So I don't think that's
I'll
the
not
case.
debate this point. Anil, any views on this, sir?
No,
Yeah, Rohan, I'll come to you, Rohan. After Anil.
No, I think I agree with Abhishek. The good experience, typically, that's what a candidate assumes he is going to get, and those don't get captured. But it's a good point. I think, we should encourage our candidates to do write good experience as well. Also, because most of the time what we get is some of the experiences which are not good. But but as I said, in a scale it happens, and we have a team which looks after that, and we address those concerns.
Okay. So you are conscious of that.
Yeah, we are aware, and we know that it is going to happen. And I'll be honest, if I get 10 cases right, there will be 2 cases where maybe my team has missed it. Now I have a team, I have a help desk, I have a team which responds. I personally get involved to ensure that every candidate that escalates, there is a resolution. But yes, somebody purposely, encouraging candidates to write negative, I don't think so.
Rohan, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, okay, of course, I'm going to be very biased. Indeed, sister company is Glassdoor. We represent Glassdoor in India as well. So I'm doing the training for it at some level. So let me answer how we work, right, in Glassdoor and Indeed. So there are automated moderation systems in place which actually look at most of the reviews that come through. There are also manual moderation. And to counter what Abhishek was saying, this what we call the outside the bell curve reviews, right, where the extremes, the really positive, really negatives, we actually have systems in place where we say, after you read 5 reviews, if you want to read more, you have to leave a review of your current company. So we're not catching them at a time where they are unhappy. We are catching them at a time where they're just reading. So we are hoping to get more, moderate, accurate, authentic results. And then coming to what Anil says, this is something we encourage all companies and anyone who's listening, drive reviews with your current employees. I mean, just because, and I'm not saying planted reviews, like honest, authentic, anonymous reviews. You can drive it through your own channels and say, hey, do you think our company is great? If yes, let others know. So help us out here. And so that is there. So from a Glassdoor perspective, we do, try to push that. Of course, no system is perfect. There may be 1 or 2 that get through, but we still, there are ways to report it and get them removed as well, depending on the factors.
Now let's come back to the theme. We're talking about employee experience, candidate experience, etc. Let me take a different perspective. What are the pitfalls in overdoing this?
Well, I mean, like, somebody said about branding. There's a question there also. I read the chat through. Branding is nothing but, in my point of view, it's a promise that you're making, right? As much as the pitfalls to your question, Mr. Basrai, you oversell. And today's world, a person does not hesitate in quitting in 3-4 months. Our time, Mr. Basrai, when we start a career, minimum 3-4 years, otherwise you'll have a bad resume, was the belief system we had. No, not anymore. The millennials and Gen Z think very differently. And let me put a very crude word called they don't give a damn. And if they have a bad experience, they'll just walk off. Particular skilled guy will not hesitate to walk off. So the simple pitfall is your metric, your early attrition, one metric, if you really calculate, that shows very clearly people are quitting. They're quitting because the promise that you made, you did not keep.
Has not been kept. And that's a very valid answer, that you have to make sure that your promises are kept, because nothing destroys a brand more than unfulfilled promise. And Anil, you very repeatedly mentioned your personal involvement in this process. It's very critical that the HR leaders, whether they are talent acquisition or otherwise, keep their hands on the pulse. Can you say, how do you do it? How do you manage to do that?
So basically, if you look at the TA team today, we are 1,000+ people in my team, given the kind of hiring that we do, and there is new people that are getting added. So there is, every new person that joins the team, there is a clear communication given, the do's, the don'ts. Every week there is a communication that goes out on sharing the experiences. And because, I think one thing is very clear, Doctor, is that recruitment is the first phase. It's the moment of truth. A candidate may not go beyond the first conversation. In some case, if it's not the best. But I think what kind of an experience you give in that first conversation. And I think the message is very clear. Honesty is a value at Capgemini, and you will not oversell. If it is not a development project, please don't sell it as a development project. If there is no on-site opportunity for this role, please don't sell that, after 2 months of joining, there is going to be an on-site opportunity. So I think what is possible is communicated, and what is not possible is clearly communicated. And the do's, the don'ts, the education, the knowledge sharing is something that that we play a lot of emphasis on. And it starts from the leader, and the leader, and then it goes down right up to every individual in the team. That's how we have built the team.
Thank you. I'm glad I've got some questions here. There's one question I'll pick up. While we are talking about tech factor in hiring or engagement process, isn't it true that with too much of technology, we lose the human and personalized touch? Ritika, I would like to know who asked this question. It's an excellent question. So if you can message me the name, but it's a good question. Abhishek, would you like to attempt this briefly?
So I think rightly said, with tech intervention, making sure that we have a human touch is very, very important, and it has to be a balanced process. You can't leave it all to the technology. I started with the fact that we are virtual. So anyways, we are virtual. If you leave everything to the technology, then human touch will completely be missing.
So how do you handle that? Question is very, very, very appropriate. How do you balance that you don't lose the human touch?
So in this entire process of prospecting, taking the candidate through the selection process, offering, hiring, engaging till the person joins, we make sure that at Impetus there is a very, very heavy, we are heavily towards having a human touch. So I was talking about the fact that all our conversations happen on a Teams video call. So the recruiter will have a first call and have a follow-up call with the candidate on a Teams meeting, where we walk the candidate through the 360-degree view of the organization, who we are, what we do, what is the opportunity that we are offering you, right? What will you do in that opportunity? What have you been doing all this while?
And
what
you
is
do
your
that through technology.
Right. And all our interviews after that, we are using technology, but there is a human touch, right? We are not just leaving it to a bot to do that. We are not just inviting candidates to a test and then deciding based on that test.
Okay, good. Rohan,
No,
any
so
new angle?
I can just add, sorry, if I
Yanni,
can.
go ahead.
Just a quick, this I would say, see, let's say there are 100 candidates who are doing an assessment. Okay. Only 40 people clear the assessment. I am able to give that human touch and spend that time with those 40 people and do more personalized connect with those 40 people. May not be possible to do it with the all 100 candidates. And that's where we use technology. So technology is there to do the screening and, the initial shortlisting to narrow down and then use that personal touch because, otherwise at the scale at which you operate, sometimes it's going to be difficult. Okay?
Difficult
So
to do
yeah.
that.
So, and that's the candid answer and the honest
I don't
answer.
want to miss this question out from others. Shrikant, what's your view?
No, spot on. Spot on. What they said was absolutely right. I mean, again, it's a question of, I talked about 6 elements of candidate engagement, prospecting to offer letter to so on. It's just a smart analytics or usage of data where exactly, and Anil kind of pointed out in a way, saying that we're doing 100 and the way we do it in technology, it's thousands that we recruit. The funnel is huge at the top, while it comes down to 10 people out of 1,000. So in this process, where do you need the touch is a smart element to it. So being smart in recruitment or candidate experience is a better way to bring in employee touch. And people are asking for it. Don't forget it. People are asking for it, saying that, hey, it's not going to be some bot which is going to recruit me and I'm going to sit at home and don't see my manager. So a smarter company would bring in the touch in one form or the other at various steps. That's my answer.
Rohan, I would like to give a twist since you are connected with multiple industries and sectors. How much of this can be applied in other sectors like manufacturing, services, non-tech sector?
Okay, just to add to what everyone is saying, the idea behind technology is not to replace, it is to augment. So for example, the technology should be getting rid of the administrative work, the stuff that honestly recruiters didn't join the job to do. They joined the job to make those connections, find those great candidates. So freeing up their time to do it. So I think that is a cross-industry application. In any place where we can free up people to do the personal touch, where like there is a system that does all that administrative work, the filing, the scheduling, and sending out of certain emails, which are those routine BAU emails, then there is opportunity for the personalization. I think it's applicable in any industry. I'm starting to, there is no candidate now, even light skilled candidates have an expectation of experience. It's not just a technology, prospect. Like even light skilled candidates have opportunities and they are going to choose the person who treated them the best. And so it is applicable across industries.
Any view to other sectors?
Yes, there are, like we help delivery executives get hired through our platform. We spent a lot of time making it as simple as possible. They may not be the most tech savvy people. So the more complex we made, in fact,
so
when
there
you
is a good opportunity for non-technical sectors to also look at this more seriously.
Yes, definitely. Because when you start going into lighter skill, they may not have the savvy to also get a good experience. The best experience is a light experience for them. You have to think in all of those factors.
Okay.
It might be in different ways.
So let me move to the question. So Ritika, we have 6 or 6.5 minutes to go, right? If I have not, please send me a message. There's one very good question. I wish I had the names of the people who asked this question. We are becoming too much of a chat bot, not knowing who we are talking to. And the question is, are we saying basic digitization and automation of prospecting chatbot gives a better experience? Isn't that a basic expectation now? How about enhancing that experience? Who would like to answer that?
Let me take a shot. Anil, I think, kind of hinted upon it. It's a question of at what stage are you using the chatbots or automation tools? Anil and even Rohan talked about it, saying that the basic knowledge about the company, say, for example, I'm just taking one example. What is your company all about? What kind of careers it offers? What kind of compensation growth you can see in the last, some data points out there? Okay, what kind of technologies you're working in? What kind of customers you're working in? These are all things that chatbot can do. Now, when you're really engaging a person at a later phase, the selection phase or the offer phase, that's when the personalization or giving the promises or making the right kind of brand, promises to the candidate would come into picture. So both play hand in hand. All speakers talked about it. It's a question of how to really differentiate at what stage.
Balancing.
That is very critical. Yeah.
Anyone else would like to add something? I'm leaving this open to any three of you.
So it's also about the scale. Like Anil has a different scale he is operating at. I have a different scale I'm operating at, right? So you make your strategies as per the scale, and then you put your processes around the scale that you're talking about.
It's a good question because you can't spread too thin. I mean, if you're hiring in the numbers that Anil and Srikanth are talking about, then you have to be careful. Also, I feel it's dependent on levels. If you're hiring, say, experienced level people, your approach is very different compared to hiring, say, freshers. And obviously, the style of communication, the content of communication, the content of interaction will vary based on the profile of the candidates. That is very important to understand.
Absolutely.
One size does not fit all. And in fact, it would serve the opposite purpose if you use the same technique for some experienced people. What do you think post-COVID, I mean, whenever post-COVID is, will all this be discarded? Anil?
No, it will not be discarded. All these will continue. Of course, some flavors, for example, today, if you're using a tool for a weekend drive, because you're not in the office doing weekend drives, maybe you will move into a scenario, a hybrid model where, some interviews will happen during the weekdays. You will still want to do your weekends where you would want to complete your entire hiring process in the same day, from morning to evening. So I think, all the best practices that we have learned from this COVID era, we'll take those. And I think it's going to be a hybrid. Some we will keep and some we will let go.
And what will we keep?
We'll keep, as I said, interview assessments, what we are doing today. We are going to keep that. AI-based sourcing to screen and
Okay,
come
the
to the
tools-
right.
tools
Yeah,
you
the
keep.
tools.
Rohan,
we
any
will
other
keep.
perspective?
Yeah, no, not a different perspective, but I think the efficiencies of scale that we've managed to pull off in the COVID, right? I think many organizations were not doing it because it was not considered, but a lot of productivity improvements, a lot of efficiencies have come up as a consequence of us switching to this virtual. I'm sure no TA head wants to move away from those efficiencies of scale because it has been really beneficial. And I think in some cases, the ability to have these, there was a thing, right? In-person interviews, people showed up late. Virtual interviews, everyone's on time. No one's coming late for them. It's all in your calendars. There are just a few small things that have come up as a consequence of this COVID thing, which we would not be smart to let go of, or at least try and emulate in a different way of some sort.
Good small observation. Abhishek, you expressed some concern about candidate virtually not meeting people physically, etc., has its own downside. What do you think? All these processes, etc., of course, they will not be replaced, like Anil said. They will not be discarded. Anything that you feel will dramatically change?
No, I don't think. I think the overall digitization throughout the process will continue to be there. I think what may happen once we move back to offices is that you use all these for efficient hiring, and you keep that one-to-one connect or in-person connect for more of an engagement conversation or enrolling conversations with people, where you showcase what kind of a future you're going to give them, where you have some socializing time for them with people at different levels that they will work with, right? So we were doing it pre-COVID, where we were inviting all our candidates to one place and having them meet and go through the entire facility and meet different people and get to know about the company.
Okay.
I think we'll keep those kind of conversations and meetings
Going.
for engagement and
So,
enrollment.
Srikanth, in this whole candidate experience in last, say, 2 years or 3 years time, what is the one smart thing you have learned as an experienced professional?
Easily, never even imagined in my lifetime that I'll work in a hybrid environment with more and more digitization in the recruitment process, particularly. So I think how to really kind of adapt yourself, and bringing the employee touch. And HR is all about employee touch and engagement. How
Excellent.
to blend these two has been a
It's
phenomenon.
a very, very apt explanation that those of us in the audience, if we think that, this is all for youngsters, people who are tech savvy, it is a misnomer, because it doesn't matter how old you are or in age or in experience or in tenure, you've got to adapt. It's an excellent answer. So as I close up in the last 60 seconds, give me in less than 5 words advice that you would give to the audience on subject of candidate experience. Anil, starting with you, sir. 5 seconds.
I would say, we are working towards giving a great candidate experience with a mix of tools and personal.
So use
connect.
tools and hybrid of personal connection
yes.
and tools.
Yeah.
Rohan,
Listen to job seekers and measure everything.
see, this is and it fits your title, evangelist. Listen to job seekers and measure.
Everything. Yeah.
And I like your continuous focus persistently on measure everything that you are doing. And I think some of us in HR have to learn that. We do carpet bombing, not drone bombing. And if you measure, your drone bombing becomes more effective. Abhishek, what's your 5-word advice to the audience? And
I would say, like Shrikant said, personalize things for candidates. Like personalization
start all the
is the
tech
key.
stuff, throw away all the tech stuff.
No, keep tech stuff, but personalize it for candidates. Your conversations.
So keep the human touch going.
Yes.
Okay, Shrikant?
Well, I would say 3 things. Different strokes for different people. I think, Mr. Basai, you touched upon it. Senior management requires a different touch. Middle management is different. Their aspirations are different. And so is the case with freshers. I'm also answering the question.
Tailor-make.
Tailor-make, yeah. That's personalization in a way, which Abhishek talked about. But I like one question. I'm going to answer it. How does L&D play a role? I really like that question a lot because that's my favorite topic too. So I'm kind of hit upon use L&D as effectively as possible to have an outreach to the candidates in the campuses, give pre-course material, train them, skill them, free of cost, obviously, so that you'll be a better brand employee. That's one thing L&D asks.
Thank you. Thank you, Shrikant. This is the longest 5-word answer I've heard.
Well, I had to answer that question.
But thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was very wise, and I'm just kidding about that.
Yeah.
And thank you, each one. And I'm not just flattering you because you're on the panel. Each one of you has brought in an angle slightly different than the other. And there is a richness of a diverse view in a panel like this. I wish we had more questions from the audience, but some of the questions I could not really ask. But what you are sharing in this panel session will have a tremendous impact on the way we behave and the way we conduct ourselves. So thank you very much for each one of you for your input and fresh ideas that you brought in. I enjoyed the conversation and I hope the audience did the same. Thank you for your time and participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.